What up, it's Guido. It's been 4 days and I'm playing the Boneshatter build. Overall, I'm stuck at like tier 10 to 14 maps. I definitely can do tier 14 to 16 maps right now. And the main reason for that is that the single target of this build is really bad. It kind of sucks, to be honest. But on the other hand, clear feels really amazing. You just smack something and everything kind of explodes. Like that's the feeling. Just one smack, everything. And just jump smack. Feels really nice. And also a good thing about the build is very tanky. Keep in mind I'm playing solo cell phone, so I don't have access to different kind of uniques. So I'm just trying to push it forward on this solo cell phone scenario and just to play with what I have right now. I also don't have a 6 link, so that's also an issue. So I'll try to get the 6 link, a better Mace. I'm still having a lot of fun and see how far I can get with this build. Maybe I can do some kind of other build. I'll also have some kind of workarounds how to deal with having no damage actually. So let's get into some more detailed information. So first let's talk about the stun mechanic in general, because the Boneshatter build has two interactions with it. One is that if you stun enemy, you get the AoE attack. Second, the more duration of the stun, the more increased area effect for that. So how does stun work in general? So first of all, the stun mechanic has the base duration of 0.35 seconds, right? So that means that if you get a 30% increased stun duration, you're gonna get 0.1 second of stun duration more, and this will give you 15% increased area of effect. So that's the base thing. And one thing to keep in mind, the Ruthless is gonna increase that this base duration right now. So this is what you're gonna get for increased stun duration. And the second thing important, I think, is stun threshold, meaning that the more stun threshold you get, or the more you reduce it for enemies, the easier it is for you to stun enemies. And it actually works. It's actually a really good stat for this build, because you really want to stun enemies in order to have this splash effect or explodey effect. So if I do the math, then if I'm hitting an enemy for 20% of their maximum life, right, I'm smacking them. But if my stun threshold is, let's say, this here, right, it's like 50%, then in order for me to go from 20% to 25%, I would need 25% more damage. I would need 25% more damage in order to go from here to here. But if I have stun threshold, if I get stun threshold, I only need 10% stun threshold in order to get enemies consistently stunned with 25% more damage. So it's very efficient to stack this reduced enemy threshold, and I have stacked it right now up to around 75%. So I would only need to hit enemies for 12% of their maximum life in order to stun them, and to have a chance to stun enemies, I only need to hit for 2.5%. So that's pretty cool. And we're gonna have I'll show you what I did different in the build in order to achieve this. The stun threshold is one of the biggest reasons I'm using Endurance Charge on melee stun support gem, because I can get 20% reduced enemy stun threshold with this gem, and it also gives me around 28% more damage since I'm gathering the 7 endurance charges minimum. I would love to get more in order to get more damage and damage reduction. And the reason why we're actually getting endurance charges is to get physical damage reduction, flat physical damage reduction, because this gives 4% physical damage reduction per endurance charge. And since we're smacking ourselves back with the physical damage, it's really good to negotiate that damage and negate the damage as much as possible. So endurance charges are the best approach. Here are the other skill gems that I'm using right now. So I'm using melee physical damage, brutality, fortify, and the one gem I mentioned already. And just comment on gems. Fortify sucks. Yeah, because they updated. Fortify sucks. Damage-wise, it's like it feels bad to use Fortify because it's just 90% damage. It's like, ugh. But the Fortify is still great effect. You have to use it anyway. I see a lot of people using Rootless, and it's. I would love to use Rootless, to be honest. That sounds really good. The biggest reason is because it gives you 0.8% base stun duration, which gives like insane AoE actually at the end of the day. But I really want consistent. I haven't picked up Rootless yet because I really want consistency with my damage, and so I just picked the most damage gems with endurance charge and Fortify that I could get right now. So that's going to be my 6th link when I get it. It's gonna be soon. I have a ritual where it's popping up, so I'll get it from there as well. For my other skill gems or skills, I am using Ancestral Warchief, and I'm trying to link it with Mace, because this helps both of my attacks and this 5 link, and also trying to get just the most damage I can out of Ancestral Warchief, because again I'm lacking single target, so if I can drop it down and do some additional single target, it works very well. And on top of that, I have set up 3 wall skills, which is first one is obviously wall Ancestral Warchief, then I'm actually using wall haste, and then I'm using wall molten shell, with the idea that when I approach a boss at the end of the map, I can drop Ancestral Warchief down, I can drop haste down, which gives me 29 increased attack speed, which is really good. And then it also, I pop up wall molten shell so I can actually stand there and smack. So that's my approach of actually beating bosses. Just pop all the wall skills and like smack them, bah, 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 and just try to do it as fast as possible. I'm actually also using phase run. Feels really good actually. And it also has an effect where you can smack for 28% more melee damage if you come out of the buff. So I think it's really useful. I have seen some people using Vengeance, for example, and it's kind of good. You can get a little bit more damage when you're clearing maps. And you can get survivability if you link it with life on hit. You can get around, you see, 44 life back when you hit something. So if you run into a pack and it starts hitting you, just get smack and get a lot of life back. So that's kind of good. I also tried, and it worked quite well actually, rage support. I put a rage support with Leap Slam. I put rage support with Vengeance, and some maps when it's very fast and consistent maps, I could get to a 20-30 rage in the map. So that helped a little bit. But you know, I decided to go against this strategy because I don't need more clear speed. I'm super fast at clearing. I don't need that anymore. I'd rather get these wall skills so I can burst down bosses. Because I'm smacking everything and one-shotting anyway. Other than that, I still have custom damage taken with Immortal Call. I'm using also Purifying Flame so I can get the Consecrated Ground, which gives me 4% life regen. Very nice if I have to stand still and smack bosses. Well, because I'm gonna be right next to them, so if I have Consecrated Ground there, it helps a lot with life regen there. And then I have linked Vulnerability there. And the cool thing about this is, since you're smacking yourself as well back with the damage, you can consistently trigger this vulnerability from custom damage taken without actually taking any damage. So I think that's a cool part about this, because you don't really want to stand and wait for the boss to hit you when you're doing big bosses. Like, you just want to have the vulnerability on when you're smacking him, right? And then just Ancestral Call and Enduring Cry. And the reason I'm having actually Enduring Cry is, or the only reason, because I'm using only an Ancestral Call, and since I have Call of Arms, I can't use both of them. This is actually for bossing. I imagine that when I will have some more tougher endgame bosses, I'll not have ways to generate or keep endurance charges if they don't hit me, kinda. And also the regen, so I will be able to use it when I have big bosses. And with big bosses, this is kind of useless. I don't need more targets, right? So I don't need Ancestral Call, and I can use Enduring Cry instead for that. So that's my plan with this Enduring Cry, some increased. And as you probably noticed already, I'm using also Blood Magic. I'll explain that a little bit later, because there's going to be quite a long explanation why I went to this conclusion, because it didn't feel good at first. I have also went for some impale nodes, and the reason I first I've hesitated to go impale. I also tried a little bit of the impaler, you know, have a little bit hitting packs of monsters easily with impales. But the thing is that I'm actually have to stand still and hit enemies for multiple times and just quick. And I have a faster faster mace. So this helps with that a lot. And I can actually get the impales, and I can get that good impale effect, because you know you have to smack a couple of times in order to get the impale rolling, instead of having just melee physical damage that just like hit and damage is there. You might also notice that I'm using pile driver instead of the classical Karui Maul, and there's actually reasoning behind that, in sense that Karui Maul has the best base damage. So when you hit something, the hit is gonna be much harder. And you might think that the best approach for this build is to actually have the most damage possible when you're smacking enemy, right? Because the higher the smack damage, the higher chance you're gonna stun enemies. But this is an exception, because the pile driver has the implicit of 20% reduced enemy stun threshold, right? So this is the reason why I went for this smite, because it has this implicit, and while it might have less damage overall, just like hit damage, it has more attack speed, it gives me faster attacks, and I still keep, and I probably get more stun threshold, or more chance to stun enemies, because I'm using this mace. And attack speed is needed for boss damage, because the more you hit enemies, the faster you hit enemies, the more you get trauma stacks, which, okay, you take more damage yourself, but you can get more damage per trauma stack on enemies, and that's kind of what you have to stack in order to get at least some boss damage. And right now I'm getting 9 to 10 trauma stacks when I'm able to keep on smacking enemies or smacking boss. I think that helps a lot with the single target. On the skill tree, I taken Unstoppable. And I think this is really useful, especially in this patch, because you cannot beat chill, you can be frozen, you can ignore temporal chains. While these might hold you back if you didn't have, now these problems are kind of solved, and gives you also a movement speed, which is kind of cool. But there are still other effects or ailments that are kind of a problem, which is, and the biggest one is shock, because shock is actually really painful. If you don't want to die, get rid of shock. You have to figure something out. And to mitigate shock, I am using two strategies here. One strategy is reduced effect and chill on shock on you. Effect of chill and shock on you. It's a glove. It's a glove crafting bench craft, and I didn't actually know there is one, but I was just looking through it and noticed, and that's actually awesome. Now I have 25% reduced effect of shock, and on top of that, I'm using Pantheon, and this is where I get 30% reduced effect of shock. So this in total, this gives me 55%, so half of the shock effect. I think that's pretty good. So if I get shocked for 30%, meaning I take 30% more damage, it reduced to around 15, so half. So I think that more or less deals. I'm hoping maybe I'll switch my Devoto's Devotion for a helmet that has also a shock reduction influenced the suffix. That's also one option that I think I'm going for. And then for something like Poison or Ignite, oh, they made update, cool. it's 4 seconds now. For the other ailments like Poison and Burning that we have left, We have a lot of regeneration from the skill tree, some leech as well if that's needed. So, and you can use flasks. It's not as fast as you're gonna die from shock. Because the problem with shock is you get shock, you guys, boom, you die. That's a problem. With these, you can probably notice usually and use the new implicit thingies to get triggered if you need that, or you can just notice on the screen and click when that's necessary in order to gain immunity from those. So let's get back to the topic of blood magic. Why I picked actually blood magic? Because it kind of doesn't make sense. You can get more auras, right, if you don't use blood magic, and in that you can get more damage or other benefits. But the biggest turnaround for me to get blood magic was vulnerability with triggers. So if I just put in life tap gem instead, and if I check vulnerability now, it costs 120 life, and I think that's just kind of ridiculous. Like 120 life, you wanna trigger vulnerability? So come on, man. And this is kind of what pushed me to the edge, because I had also vengeance in, and the multipliers are just crazy. You get it makes skills cost 3 times more mana into life, basically. And for the other mana reservation gems, first one that comes to mind, of course, is Pride, right? And this is a good gem. It reserves 50% of your mana, and that's what I'm using right now also when I'm having this Mortal Conviction, where I can have actually one mana running, 1 aura running. And so what are the other options? The other options are Herald of Purity, which reserves 25% of your mana, and the other option is Flesh and Stone. With Herald of Purity, you could also squeeze in some banner, but the problem with Herald of Purity, I tried it out actually, and it kind of sucks. The reason because it summons the sentinels, and they draw enemy aggro to you, and it's kind of annoying because you want everyone to like really like come to you, and you smack them, everything explodes. But if you have sentinels running around, the enemy just split up and they just go around the places. You have to go around and smacking behind these sentinels and smack everyone there. So it kind of messes up the play. And the damage is like 10-11%, something 12% I think was, right? So it's like I don't really want to use this. Then I have Flesh and Stone, and this gem, yeah, it's okay. It can give you 10% more damage, or something a little bit more than 10, but then it reserves 35% of your mana, and it doesn't really have any other benefits, just 35% of your mana for 12 damage. So, and if I look at the tree, I get also 2 amazing life nodes, which gives you 20% life, which is equivalent to around, if I would take 4 of these nodes, right? I could take these 4 nodes, or I could take these 2 nodes and also have blood magic, so I don't really lose any skill points there. And if you do kind of the math a little bit, then with 4 skill points I could take some kind of node that would give me around 7-8% more damage. So I'm kind of losing 4% damage for the ability to lose at least 2 life taps. I was losing at least 2 life taps for my triggers, and you don't have to mana issues. You don't need some jewels or anything like that, and you also don't have to worry about some kind of modifiers on the maps and so on. So it kind of feels really good to have this blood magic. I don't really see a big downside to using that. One note about the blood magic, or kind of cool thing, is that you could actually go petrified blood with this and be kind of good, because when you reserve, petrified blood needs 35% mana reservation. If you use if you use life tap now, that's gonna get multiplied by 3 and you will not be able to reserve life. But since you're using blood magic, you can just reserve 35% of your life here, and you can also squeeze in another just like a banner in. Right? So that's one approach to do if you get enough life though, because right now I don't have enough life in order to make the Bloodlust support gem efficient, because it deals damage based on percentage of a life, right? So I will need to get my life up in order to be able to use this Bloodthirst gem in my 6-link, because like that would be the main reason you will do that. So that's something I'm maybe gonna do in future, planning on doing something, and I have seen other people do that as well. I have also considered using Crimson Dance to boost my single target damage, and while it sounds good on the paper and looks, my point of building looks good, if you actually do the math, the real problem with this is actually the bleed chance. This right now is assuming I have 100% bleed chance when I hit enemies, which is not true. I'm only using vulnerability that gets reduced by bosses, and in reality a level 1 vulnerability gem will give you 6% chance to inflict bleeding against something like Cyrus. So you will need a lot of investment in some kind of other points or items to get the bleed chance up in order to actually get those Crimson Dance bleed stacks on and make this efficient. If I had maybe an axe, sorry, if I had a mace with some bleeding implicits, explicits, and have a lot of bleeding there, then I might actually consider the Crimson Dance. That's something to keep in mind as well. And if you're playing Trade League, then for this build, actually there's some good uniques that are available and that you can use for this build. And there are two main approaches that I see going on. One of the approaches is just pure strength stacking and using war stuff instead of a mace, and then just getting strength, getting Albert these boots that give 18% increased strength, some implicit jewelry with strength, and just trying to get the strength up, going crit, and then you take the accuracy equal to your strength, twice your strength. So you just stack a lot of strength, you get accuracy, you can do crit and just do giga damage. And also with this stuff, that seems like a good strategy. I can try it out, of course, getting stats. And the other approach is to using the Tidebreaker Mace, which has the built-in endurance charge and melee stun gem, so you don't need to put it in your take up any gem slots. You can just use that and then get some try to get some endurance charges using Red Slatus Coil and so on. Alright, that's it for me. I hope you found this video useful. If you have anything to add, I will gladly hear from you in the comments section, and enjoy smacking your opponents. Ba-boom.